Hello readers, I'm Amy and today we're having a book haul. So I'm going to have a little preface here and tell you about my book hauls if you're unfamiliar with them, since I've had a lot of new followers recently. Let's start with my 2020 goals. My 2020 goals were focused on a low buy. My low buy failed hard. I was planning on purchasing no more than 12 books in the year of 2020. I was thinking that would take care of some of the book clubs that I was in and like finishing up buying some series or something. And I, so far this year, have bought 23 books. So already almost double what my low buy goal was, which is okay because I have more to tell you on that point, but let's put a pin in that for a second. Now, as for my haul and unhaul videos, my unhauls I do a sort of vlog setup so that I don't have to just store up all of my books and wait to do an unhaul, but I also don't want to unhaul them as I'm doing that like in its own video because that just wouldn't make for much of a video. So I do vlogs and I do them seasonally. For hauls, I also do these seasonally. Rather than saying, here's all the books that I got this month, I just put them all into one seasonal video, because this way, a lot of the books that I talk about I have already read, and that gives my haul videos a little more substance than saying, here's this book that I bought and I don't know anything about it. That, of course, happens in my haul videos, but not to all of my books. And then I do a haul revisit. So I will visit 2 seasons previously, so right now is spring, so my unhaul revisit will be for fall, and I will go through the books that I bought for that season and say, did I read this? Did I not? Did I DNF it? Did I unhaul it? And it's just a way of keeping track of my purchasing, and even though my low buy failed, it's a better way for me to take responsibility and to keep track of everything. So, as for the books that I did buy, usually I've read maybe a third or so of the books that I have hauled, but this year I'm focusing on like some readathons and on this book club that I'm in and books that I'm super excited for. So most of the books in this haul I have actually read. So I'm going to do a quick review for those that I've read, tell you about the ones that I've DNF'd, basically just tracking my purchases so far this year. So we are going to start with What the Book Club Read, which is a book club being put on by Victoria from What Victoria Read, where we are reading one Margaret Atwood novel every month in publication order. So for January, we read The Edible Woman. I tried reading this in college. I was bored because nothing happened and I put it down. And I picked this up in January and nothing happens in this story, but I was actually really into it. My reading tastes have changed. You basically have this woman who is going about life, doing her job, getting engaged, but she doesn't really feel fulfilled by any of it. Very feminist. Margaret Atwood did a very good job for her first book. This is also literary fiction, which is not something that I am really super into as a genre. It just tends to feel a little above my head, but I really liked this, so good job. Then Salem's Lot, which if you don't know about my history with Salem's Lot, I read the audiobook sometime last year, and I really didn't like it. I felt like a lot of it was just a Dracula retelling, that it was relying too much on the Dracula story, but also there are a ton of characters in Salem's Lot, so audiobook was just not the best medium for me to read this book in, and so I do want to read it again someday. That said, I got this cover at a used bookstore because I love this cover. It's dark and you can like barely see it, but then it's got the bright blood, and I love this cover, and it was a used book, so it was like a couple of dollars, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna get it. I'll add it to my husband's enormous Stephen King collection. Then these next couple of books. Oh wait, I have to backtrack. I'm trying to keep track on my phone, and basically I'm going in the order that I purchased. I'm counting this as a book purchase for the year, even though it is not a specific book. So I live in Montana. My library's, it's decent for the biggest city in Montana, but it doesn't always have all the books that I'm looking for. And one of my friends told me about the Brooklyn Library in New York, so you can actually go on there and get a long distance library card. So this gives me access to audiobooks and ebooks for what was it, $50 a year? And I figured that's pretty good. With the amount of books that I would read for that $50 a year, I decided it was definitely worth getting a library card for them. So through the Libby app, I have both my hometown library as well as the Brooklyn library that I'm paying for, whereas my hometown library is free because I live here. So counted that as one of my book purchases. Then got 2 more Margaret Atwood books. That was Surfacing, which I got as an ebook. I DNF'd this after like 4 chapters. Characters were just really pretentious. I didn't see the story going anywhere and wasn't super into it. I can't unhaul it because it's an ebook, but hey, maybe I'll finish it someday. I don't know. Then I also got Lady Oracle. This was our March book. This is a book that I took with me on my Mexico trip and read through it. I really liked about 3/4 of this book, and then I got really bored. We come across this woman who is living in Italy. She has faked her death to escape from her life, and we're going to figure out why. So we go through basically her whole life story. And I found it pretty interesting until towards the end when she's like cheating on her husband and things are just getting weird. And that's when I really started to realize this trope of Margaret Atwood's, where in her first book and in this book and in her 4th book, which I also got, there's cheating, and it's just not a trope that I like. Because I didn't finish Surfacing, I don't know if there was cheating in that one, but just because of how pretentious the characters were, I'm gonna say there probably was. But anyways, I enjoyed this book well enough. I'm keeping it on my shelf for now. I might possibly unhaul it at a future date. I haven't really decided that yet. Then I went to a used book sale with one of my friends, and if you purchased a bag of books, you also got a free advanced reader copy, which this had already been released by the time I got the advanced reader copy, but hey, it was a free copy. Also, a horrible cover, but being an advanced reader copy, I can't really hold that against it. This is The Lady from the Black Lagoon. This is the first book on this list that I have not actually read yet. Hollywood Monsters and the Lost Legacy of Millicent Patrick, who apparently came up with the costume for The Lady from the Black Lagoon. I'm actually holding on to this now because Hillary from Melted Books, as many of you will know, she is my bestest booktube friend. She also has this book and has really been wanting to read it, so I'm kind of just holding on to it for a buddy read whenever she decides she's up for it. So that's going to be fun. And then I also got Native Son by Richard Wright. I've heard many good things about this. My friend that I went shopping with was obsessing about the idea of me reading this, and I just have not gotten around to it yet. It's, a man who could have been put in jail for assault or petty larceny, but by chance it was for murder and rape. And while that does sound really interesting, I've also read a lot of books on sexual assault lately, and I'm just kind of done with the heavy reading for now. Self-care. It's also May, so it's Mental Health Month, and I'm participating in Mental Health-a-thon, so for self-care reasons, I'm just not reading sexual assault books right now. But I will get to this one soon. I'm really, really excited for it. I've heard nothing but great things. Slay. This was another book that I read on my Mexico trip. This is it's a young adult, about a black video game developer. She's in high school, no one knows that she's a video game developer, and the video game that she has created is essentially a safe space for black people. And it gets out, and the secret password is given to this threatening person, and there's this one kid who dies, and she's trying to figure out what's going on, and it's really intense. It goes a lot into black politics and safe spaces, which I thought was really awesome. I ended up unhauling this just because the writing was really young for me. I really enjoyed it and I finished it, but I am actually going to be donating it to my place of work, which I work with a lot of teenagers, because I think that they're really going to appreciate it and they're really going to get a lot more out of it. So I really enjoyed it. I just don't see myself reading it again because the young adult writing is a little young for me and my tastes. Then Mem by Bethany Morris? Yeah. Bethany C. Morrow. I have it on one of those spreadsheet things, so like it cuts off the letters. This book I was not super into. I got it from a local bookstore. It's one of those, every time I looked at the cover I thought it said men, even though I knew it said mem. But this is about memories. You have say, this person with a traumatic memory, and they go to this building where the memory is taken out of them and put into a clone. And some of them take the clones to parties, and a lot of the memories are just housed at this institution to basically separate the trauma from the person. And it was a really cool idea. But the book was really short. It was almost a novella. And it was speculative fiction, so it's kind of like a mash of sci-fi and literary fiction. I enjoy sci-fi, I enjoy the sci-fi aspect to it, but with the literary fiction, I just didn't understand what the book was trying to say. I don't know if it ever really made its point. Just wasn't my favorite, so I did end up unhauling that. Then next we have Girl, Woman, Other, which still has a bookmark in it, and lots of post-its because I started putting post-its in it. I did technically DNF this, but I'm not counting it as a DNF because I am going to pick it up again soon. But I was reading a lot of books at the time that I started this, and it's definitely a book that I have to read on its own without any other books to distract me. Because I initially open it up and I'm like, oh, this prose looks really cool. I think I'll really enjoy it. And then I start reading it through and I didn't get it. Granted, I'm only about a chapter in, but the prose is just something that's going to take a lot of concentration for me. And keeping track of the characters is a little funky. So I'm not sure what I'm going to think of this yet. I've been hoping that I was really going to like it because I've heard really great things. But with the prose, it's freaking me out a little bit, honestly. Then Break Your Glass Slippers. This is the first book in a new poetry series by Amanda Lovelace. I don't have her Monsters poetry series, but I have the Princess Saves Herself in this one. I have that whole series. This one actually has some illustrations included in it that are really, really beautiful. I enjoy this. This is just another one that's exploring feminism and women's power, and highly recommend if you're like me and you struggle to get into poetry. Then My Dark Vanessa. This one was recommended by Murphy Napier. I ended up picking it up. I loved it. I have my review up above, which I will link there. But teacher, student, pedophilia, trying to figure out what the heck happened when she was a kid. It's very interesting. Then, my most beloved book. If you're at all familiar with my channel, you know I have a thing for vampires, and I particularly have a thing for Drácula. I'm in Mexico. I want to see a bookstore. And we end up going into a bookstore, and my husband's just like, oh, hey, sweetie, they have all these books on the Mayans. They're really cool, because he's thinking, oh, what books do you have in English? And the person there is just like, the only books we have in English are books on the Mayans. And I'm over there in the classics, of course, looking for Drácula, and I find it. I don't know that I will ever be able to read this book. I actually did read a chunk of the first chapter just to soak in the language. I do not speak Spanish. I've learned a bit of Spanish from time to time. I understood the gist of what people were trying to say sometimes when we were in Mexico. I would like to really learn eventually so I can communicate with more of my husband's family. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but now I have a Mexican copy of Drácula, and it's in Spanish, and I love it. And I just recently, like, in the last couple of months, got rid of one of my copies of Drácula, because I'm like, I have too many copies of Drácula, I don't really like this copy anyways, and here I am, with another copy of Drácula. The rate I'm going, I'll probably just get a copy of Drácula in every country that I visit. I really shouldn't encourage myself like that. Now we have the Grady Hendrix books. All of these I have read. I have Horrorstör, which is my least favorite Grady Hendrix book because the writing's just not there yet. But at my least favorite, it's still standing at a wonderful 4.5 stars, so it's great. My Best Friend's Exorcism, which I read earlier this year, and I'm hoping to do a buddy read with someone this summer to read it again because it was fantastic. I don't recommend the audiobook. The narrator is kind of robotic and it just wasn't great, but look at this. Look at all of these covers. Horrorstör is like an IKEA catalog, and it's like, oh, you can go to this page to find out more about this furniture. And if you go to that page, it actually has a little bit on the furniture, so that's cool. Then we have My Best Friend's Exorcism, which is like this 80s VHS cover, and even the back of it looks like the back of a VHS, and focus. There we go. It's just great. I freaking love it. Also, amazing female friendship. If you're looking for female friendship in your books, you want to pick up my best friend's Exorcism. And then we have the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. This is some serious gaslighting. It was a rage read. I kind of wanted to throw it out the window at multiple points, but I also completely loved it and gave it 5 stars. And it's about a vampire and a book club. Pretty self-explanatory. Know My Name and Maid I got at the airport on the way home from Mexico. I should really I'll make sure to put my Mexico reading vlog in here so you guys know what I'm talking about. Know My Name is an amazing book by Chanel Miller. She is a beautiful writer. She is an artist, and she was the victim of Brock Turner. And while I love this book and I think that it's really important to read, I also recommend that you don't try to read it all in one go like I did, because it's a lot. Emotionally, it's a lot. She goes through every detail of what happened, every point in the court system, all the stuff that she had to do, all of the emotional toll that she went through, and it's a lot. It's beautiful, but it's a lot, but it's beautiful. Just read it, please. And Maid, I read this last year and absolutely loved it. It's also by a local author. I don't remember if she was from Montana or if she was living in Washington, but she did eventually move to Missoula, which is, 4 to 6 hours away from where I am right now. So really loved this. Just wanted to have a copy on my shelf. Camgirl I got last year from NetGalley. I don't love the Kindle version because the NetGalley arcs have all of these like weird symbols every couple paragraphs, and the initial one that I got was actually missing parts of the book, so I had to contact the publishing company. But anyways, I loved the book enough that I decided to financially support the author and get a copy of the book. This is about a cam girl talking about her camming experiences, and it's really fascinating, and it's got some mental health stuff in here, and I loved this. Really the whole last part of this haul is just a sex work haul, or sex education, sex culture haul. So I have Camgirl, which is about camgirling. Vibrator Nation is a book that I got from the publisher, and it was a PDF version on my computer, and I wanted to have a physical copy because I loved it so much, so I got a physical copy. This is about feminist sex toy stores, which there will be some upcoming content on feminist sex toy stores for reasons. I'm really excited to do that video, but if you are interested in history, if you're interested in the sex business, highly recommend this. Also, Lynn Camella, the author of this, is one of the friends of one of my previous sociology teachers, so I just thought it was really cool that I had that connection. Last 2 books in this haul. Let's go. From Edelweiss, which is kind of like NetGalley. I got a PDF copy of Doing It. I wanted to get the physical book. If I ordered from Book Depository, I probably could have gotten the good cover, which is the cover with Hannah Witton's face on it, and it's blue, and Doing It is in pink, and it's really pretty. This book cover is kind of awful, but now I have a physical copy of Doing It. This is the basics on sex from the awesome YouTuber Hannah Witton. Highly recommend checking out her channel. It's just phenomenal. And she's also talking a lot about sex and sexuality with a stoma, since she now has a stoma, which I'm worried about maybe getting someday because of my ulcerative colitis, but I don't know. At least I'm gathering my resources now. And then I got her second book, which I haven't read yet, which is the Hormone Diaries, the bloody truth about our periods. Everyone should know about periods. Periods are important. They don't just affect women. All of these books, these sexuality books, will be featured in some upcoming videos that I'm planning on sex education and sex culture, and I think it's going to be great. That is it for my haul. I think I have taken up enough of your time. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, be my friend on social media. I will see all of you in my next video, and I should actually, before I completely break it off here, I should probably do my usual trying to pick up the books that I've hauled, which I actually think that this is a significantly smaller pile than it would usually be for a book haul. Hey! I did it again! Almost. Bye, friends.